Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. So the lead producer of the next Battlefield game, David Sirland, actually went ahead and made a post on X, former Twitter, and he was asking the community to ask him what they want to know, like the common knowledge, without speaking about the actual leak material. And in my opinion, there's been some helpful Q&A going down there, and we're going to read through that as well. But we're also going to talk about some of the leaks that has been going on in the Battlefield community in the recent days. So what actually David responded to was regarding tank resupply stations, players who test the game and going into the direction of becoming COD, how they receive feedback, bad advices from bad people, from people who are not Battlefield community actually, and those kind of stuff. In my opinion, it was completely helpful, and it gives us some sort of insight about what's going on inside the studios and inside of even EA actually. So let's go ahead and see what we've got here. I'm pretty sure you're going to get some of your answers regarding these topics as well. So David actually starts with a small explanation first. Let's go ahead and read through that. So he says, "Hey Battlefield community, I'm open to discuss public knowledge topics, but not stuff directly connected to leaked material. In general, when it comes to that and any topic sparking reaction, labs exist for a reason, to allow us to nail what makes this Battlefield tick and work. This Battlefield may look to play one way, but I assure you it also has many layers you need to play to proceed. A key reason, outside of making a Battlefield everyone wants to play, to use something like labs, allowing us as devs to find the best possible outcome for our design together. That also doesn't mean feedback becomes what drives development. We use equal amounts of feedback, data, and confirmation connected to the goals we have for our various design areas. Some of these will revamp based on outcomes, but the majority will hone the balance of." Danny on PC said, "Understandable, but people want to try somehow." David replied, "There will be many chances to gain access and help out. It's sort of an exponential curve." So based on this, the amount of players that will be invited to the next playtests will increase over time. That makes sense actually, because you can't just start with like 10,000 players. You know, things need to go ahead and slowly progress, and I do understand this. I haven't really been invited myself to test the next Battlefield game. In my opinion, with the kind of videos that I made about DICE and EA, it's not really likely, but you know, all we can do is hope. So another user asked about the supply stations, saying, quote, "Remove the tanks having to return to a ammo station to refill vehicle ammo. Awful design choice to put it into Battlefield 5. Do not put it into the new game. Remove it completely, please, and thank you." David replied like this: "We want balanced tanks and powerful tanks worthy of the name. There is few things forcing tanks to be active outside ammunition. This approach is not Battlefield 5's. It's something that existed in Battlefield 2 as well, and key to a good version is placing the resupply stations centrally, be a resource to win and gain the spoils of the map. Getting this right balance between spawn ammunition, armor, speed, abilities, and infantry anti-tank balance is what Labs is all about. Nailing hard but necessary design systems." So what David said basically is that we're gonna stick to this, but there are layers of the game and there are things that you don't know because you haven't played the game. That is my perception of what he said. If you want to know my opinion, in my opinion, we don't really need like resupply stations at all. But again, I haven't been able to play the game. Maybe there are things I don't know. What David says is exactly that. There are layers to it. There are things we don't know, and that matters. So I'm just going to stay for at least when there's an open beta or when I get my hands on the game. Maybe I change my mind. Another user asked about slide, saying, quote, "How will you guys handle sliding in Battlefield? I'm not against having a slide mechanic in the game so long as it isn't on the same level as the recent CODs. I believe Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5 got it right." David replies saying, "We want a slide that is fun to play against and as, but that probably means a slide that isn't a viable, repeatable choice. The details of this in practice we'll get to on labs. Great gunplay for us includes the limits of the opponent's movement at the extent of use and abuse." So what David says here is really interesting. In my opinion, one of the most interesting things in this thread. Maybe they're doing something with the slide that make it look like the leaning mechanic of the game that only sometimes activates. like you can't always lean like Delta Force. There is that leaning mechanic in the game when the time is right. Maybe they're doing something with the slide that is forcing people to not use it, or making something with the slide that is only viable and usable when something else is going on. Like there is some sort of limit to it, and I don't really know about this limit at all. Maybe they're still trying things out, but apparently it's not going to be any viable, repeatable choice. That's what David Sirland says. So they're doing something fun to play against Ant as, and they want to make it some sort of tool for people to use and not abuse. Well, in my opinion, that's a great approach. Sliding might actually work under some circumstances, but not anything like Battlefield 2042. In my opinion, that's too much just over the top. Another user talks about the quality of the testing pool, saying it's the quality of the testing pool, not the quantity. What feedback are you hoping to gain from the ultra casual players on consoles that just run in circles until they die? Do you truly believe they have the perception needed to give actual decent feedback? This is lazy. While in my opinion, this is somewhat over the top because I know some very decent console players, David Sirland replies like this. Oh, it's about so much more than the feedback alone. Performance of backends, patching pipelines, internal processes, all of these get honed by each consecutive release. It's key to a stable release to do this well ahead of time. Perfect answer in my opinion, but again, I can't really disagree with this dude. There are so many players that are really casual, and I mentioned this in the previous video. In the first leaked footage, there were people who were not even able to control the recoil. And I was like, dude, this game's visual recoil is all over the place. But later on, I realized that that was not the case. This dude just wasn't able to control the recoil, and that's ridiculous. There has to be people there who actually know how to play a shooting game. That's a bare minimum, right? And on top of that, people really need to know what Battlefield is all about. Maybe that's even more important than a person being a good Battlefield player. They need to know what Battlefield is about. They need to have played something like Battlefield 3 and 4. They need to know what it's like to play a decent Battlefield game. If you've started playing from 2042 or Battlefield 5, you probably have no idea what it's like to play something like Battlefield 4. You probably don't. So because of that, in my opinion, the quality of the testing pool really does matter. Another user asks about the feedback system, saying, if to say I were selected to play on console, how do I relay testing feedback? Are there questions at the end, or do we go somewhere else to voice feedback? David replies, saying there's dedicated means to communicate once in the program. Yes. So in my opinion, that's not a decent answer right there, because we still don't know if we are just giving feedback inside the labs itself or no. We're going to get a link through email or something like that, and then we are going to fill a survey. We don't know yet. So my opinion wasn't a proper answer at all. Some other user has a humble suggestion saying, please listen, be careful in taking advice. A lot of advice will naturally be all over the place as people seek their preferred shooter with a Battlefield skin on top. I can't really agree more to this dude. And this includes everyone from Milsim fans to COD fans. Battlefield is its own thing with its own feel. So throughout my content creation journey, I've seen so many Milsim fans claiming they are Battlefield fans. Like, they want things from the next Battlefield game that, in my opinion, from a Battlefield fan perspective, are completely delusional. Like, there are some Milsim elements that don't really need to be put into a Battlefield game. And that doesn't mean I have anything to do with Milsim or hating on Milsim or whatever. As this dude said, Battlefield is its own thing with its own feel. Back in the day, we had minimum Milsim elements in a game like Battlefield 3 and 4. Yet those games are perceived as some of the best Battlefield titles, if not the best. So in my opinion, these guys as developers need to know this, because we have very decent Milsim games like Arma 3, like Squad. If they really want Milsim that bad, there are very good games to play. They don't need to ruin Battlefield games to please some sort of COD fan base or Milsim fan base. As I said before, these guys really need to do one thing. They need to please their own audience, first of all, the real Battlefield fans, and then if there's someone looking for a shooting game and they like Battlefield as it is, they can play, and that's going to be welcomed. But if not, there are multiple games that they can play, but they can't really dictate what they want in a shooting game to Battlefield to make Battlefield what it's not. So I hope that makes sense. However, the response of David Sirland is, of course, we've been down this track a couple of times before, both Battlefield 4 CTE and Battlefield 1 CTE. Thanks for the concern though. So his response was, we know what we're doing, basically. Another user says, what makes Battlefield Conquest mode tick and work is the flow of Conquest matches where there are isolated battles as well as a larger scale match going on. The awesome thing is seeing it all just click. David replies saying, indeed, this is the secret sauce right there, the Battlefield sandbox working properly. So one thing about David is very important for you guys to know. David worked on Battlefield 4. He's probably one of the only people who can save this franchise right now. And him being the elite producer is just great, but that doesn't mean that's a guarantee, okay? It's not a guarantee. I'm still seeing so many things from leaked footage that I don't like really. The other day, I saw someone having 2 primary weapons with some sort of field upgrade, which is, in my opinion, completely ridiculous considering that dude had the HUD for a pistol as well. Does that mean we're gonna have 3 weapons, 2 main weapons and a pistol? Or are we being delusional for this? I don't really know. But in my opinion, that should not be the case at all. That doesn't really make sense for a Battlefield game to have someone with 2 primary weapons. This is completely taken from COD, and there's no denying that. It's not like diving or rolling. You can't say, oh, we had dive in Battlefield 1942, so dive isn't something that came from COD. This is not something like that. This is something completely COD material. And you can't just implement this into the game saying, we're making a game of our own. That is not a game of your own if you're going to do things like that. I asked exactly this, and David did not answer, probably because he thought this is directly coming from leaked material. But I don't care, really. What I care about is the future of this franchise. If they ruin this one, if they make this Battlefield for new players and forget about their own community, this Battlefield game is going to be doomed. Just like 2042, I would say even worse, because for 2042, people had some hope, you know, they got disappointed. For this one, people don't really have hope. And what they need to do is regain trust and give the community the hope that they took, you know. So if they want to do that, really, in my opinion, they have to make something directly connected to the roots of Battlefield. Something exactly like Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. Otherwise, we're going to be somewhere in the middle. I don't really agree with people saying Battlefield needs to change. I've seen a content creator who was somewhat a EA and DICE hater now saying things like Battlefield needs to change just because he was probably invited to some sort of playtest. I'm not buying into this shit, really. Battlefield needs to change where change is due. You can't change something that's been winning for you. You can't change it. You can actually. What they did with Battlefield 5 and Battlefield 2042 was exactly that. Changing things that didn't need a change. And here we are here right now with a community that does not have an ounce of trust for DICE and for EA. With all that said, I want you guys to go down in the comment section. Let me know what you think about what David Sirland had to say. Let me know what you think about the next Battlefield game, the leaked material, everything you know about the next Battlefield game, everything you want to say. The comment section is your place to go to. We're gonna have a conversation down there, and I want to know what the YouTube channel community actually think about this next game. So hope you guys enjoyed, and until next time, guys, stay cool.